If you ignore this one little cheap part in your car, your engine will eat itself alive. I'm not talking about an oil change or spark plugs. I'm talking about a tiny $5 piece of rubber and plastic that almost every single person watching this has completely overlooked. It can turn a perfect engine into a junk heap in a matter of months. And once you see what it does, you'll never ignore it again.
You spend hundreds on good oil. You buy the premium gasoline. You change your filters on time. You do everything right, thinking your engine is going to last forever. But all that effort is useless if this one piece fails. Most mechanics won't even mention it unless you specifically ask. This single, tiny component is the most important $5 you will ever spend on your car. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what it is, what it does, and why it holds the whole life of your engine in its hand. The biggest enemy to any engine isn't friction, heat, or even lack of oil. It's actually pressure. Not the pressure from the combustion inside the cylinders, that's normal. I'm talking about the pressure that builds up outside of the cylinders, inside the rest of the engine block. This is what we call crankcase pressure, and it's a natural, inevitable side effect of your engine working. Think about the pistons moving up and down in the cylinders. As they move, tiny amounts of combustion gases, we call it blow-by, sneak past the piston rings and into the lower part of the engine, the crankcase. The more your engine works, the more this pressure builds up. Now, if you let this pressure build and build, it has to go somewhere, right? It will find the weakest point and blow it out. That means it'll push past your oil seals, your gaskets, and any rubber component it can find. This leads to massive oil leaks, failed seals, and eventually a total engine breakdown because the oil system can't work correctly under that pressure. This is a problem that every internal combustion engine has to solve. And the solution? A tiny little part called the positive crankcase ventilation valve, or the PCV valve. This is the $5 hero, the unsung champion of engine longevity. The problem, the massive, scary problem that no one talks about, is that this little valve is a consumable part that gets clogged and stuck. And when it gets clogged, that crankcase pressure goes unchecked, and your engine starts the countdown to self-destruction. This isn't a slow leak. This is a guaranteed path to needing a new engine, all because of something that costs less than a fancy coffee. Let's really dive into what this PCV valve does and why its job is so critical. It's not just about letting pressure out, it's about doing it smartly. How pressure kills your engine. The details. Imagine your engine is a sealed box. The piston goes down, and it pushes air and those blow-by gases into the crankcase. When the piston comes up, it creates a vacuum. This constant up and down motion, thousands of times a minute, would quickly overpressurize that box. When the pressure gets too high, it starts forcing oil out. You might notice oil residue around your valve covers or the oil pan gasket. You might even have a small leak that you think is just old car stuff. But this isn't just a messy leak. It's a symptom of excessive crankcase pressure. And that pressure is pushing against the oil flow itself. When pressure is too high, it messes up the return of oil back into the oil pan. The turbo, if you have one, might not drain correctly, leading to oil burning and smoking. Your expensive main seals, the ones on the front and back of the crankshaft, will start to weep, and eventually they will blow out completely, costing hundreds, sometimes thousands to replace. All of this can be traced back to a small piece of plastic and spring steel that costs less than a lunch combo. The PCV system, from simple to smart. Back in the old days, cars just vented this crankcase pressure and all the nasty polluted gases straight out into the atmosphere. This was called a road draft tube. It was simple, but terrible for the environment. So in the 1960s, engineers introduced the positive crankcase ventilation, or PCV system. It was revolutionary because it was the first closed emission system. The PCV valve's job is elegant. It connects the crankcase, where the pressure is, to the intake manifold, where the engine is sucking in air. When the engine is idling or has low vacuum, the valve is mostly closed. It allows a small, controlled amount of crankcase gas to be sucked into the engine to be burned. When you accelerate, with high vacuum, the valve opens wider. The engine is hungry for air, and it can suck up more of those crankcase gases, pulling that pressure out efficiently. When there's a backfire or emergency, if something goes wrong and the combustion flame tries to go backward through the intake, the valve slams shut instantly. This is a critical safety feature to prevent the crankcase gases from catching fire and potentially causing a catastrophic explosion inside the engine. The system is designed to create a very slight vacuum inside the engine. This is what you want. A slight negative pressure or vacuum helps all those seals hold tight and helps the oil drain back properly. When your PCV valve is working, your seals are happy, your oil stays where it should, and your engine breathes easy. The clog, the silent killer. The problem is that the blow-by gases that pass through the PCV valve are nasty. They are full of oil vapor, water vapor, and combustion byproducts like soot and carbon. Over time, these vapors cool down and condense inside the small passages of the valve in the hose. This crud builds up, turning into a thick, sticky sludge.
When the valve is covered in sludge, one of two things happens, and both are terrible. It gets stuck closed, the most common and most dangerous scenario. If the valve is stuck closed, it can't vent the crankcase pressure. The pressure builds up rapidly. This is the scenario that guarantees the destruction of your seals and gaskets. Your engine starts weeping oil everywhere, the oil level drops, and eventually a major seal fails completely. You might think, oh, it's just old seals, but it's not. It's the pressure overwhelming them. I've seen engines that look like they've been dipped in oil, all because of a $5 valve that seized shut. The car owner spends hundreds chasing down and replacing gaskets, only for them to leak again because the underlying pressure problem was never fixed. It gets stuck open. Also bad. If the valve is stuck open, it creates a constant, massive vacuum leak into your intake manifold. The computer that runs your engine is smart, but it can't compensate for this huge, unmetered leak. This leads to a very lean air-fuel mixture, rough idling, hesitation during acceleration, and often a check engine light, or CEL, because the engine is running so poorly. If it runs lean enough for long enough, the combustion temperatures rise dramatically, and that's how you can actually melt or damage your expensive catalytic converter, or worse, overheat and damage the piston tops themselves. Identifying the bad PCV valve, what to look for. So, how do you check this stealthy little killer? It's surprisingly simple. The shake test, only for the traditional style valve. On many older or simpler engines, the PCV valve is a small, canister shape plugged into a rubber grommet. You can pull it out with the engine turned off. Shake it. If you hear a faint rattle inside, the valve is likely still functioning. The rattle is the little plunger or pin moving freely. If you shake it and hear nothing, that means the spring and the plunger are seized in place by sludge. It's bad, and it needs to be replaced immediately. The idle test, the vacuum check. With the engine idling and warm, find the PCV valve and carefully disconnect the hose that leads from it to the intake manifold. Don't pull the valve out, just the hose. Now, place your finger over the hose opening on the valve. You should feel a distinct, strong vacuum pulling on your finger. If you feel only a very weak or intermittent pull, the valve is clogged and stuck closed. If you feel no vacuum, the hose itself might be clogged or the problem is elsewhere, but the valve is definitely not working correctly. This is the definitive test. The oil cap test, the pressure check. This is a simple, visual, and effective way to check for excessive crankcase pressure, which is the result of a failed PCV valve. With the engine idling, carefully take off the oil fill cap on your valve cover. Now place the cap loosely back over the opening. Don't screw it down, just let it sit there. Good result. The cap should sit still or maybe gently wiggle a tiny bit, showing a neutral or a slight vacuum. Bad result. High pressure. If the cap jumps up violently or if thick smoke is aggressively pouring out of the hole, that is proof of dangerously high crankcase pressure. Your PCV system is clogged and your engine is currently destroying its seals. Stop driving it until you fix it.
PCV valve location and replacement, the actionable steps. The replacement is almost always a super easy DIY job, which is why it's so shocking that people pay so much money for engine repair when they could have prevented it. The PCV valve location is the only tricky part because it changes depending on your car. Older cars, pre-2000s, it's usually a small, distinct canister plugged into a rubber grommet on one of the valve covers, or sometimes in the intake manifold. Look for a hose coming off a valve cover and trace it back. The valve is usually right there. Newer cars, modern engines, here's where it gets complicated. The function is still the same, but the PCV system is often integrated into the valve cover itself, meaning the valve, oil separator, and passages are all molded into the cover. In this case, you can't replace a $5 valve, you have to replace the whole $100 to $200 valve cover. It's designed to be a simple assembly, but the cost goes up. If you have a modern direct injection car, check your specific model online to see if it has a replaceable valve or an integrated system. To replace the simple style, buy the correct replacement valve for your exact year, make, and model. It'll cost you $5 to $20. With the engine off and cool, pull the old valve out of the grommet. If it's stuck, wiggle it gently. Install the new valve, making sure the hose is securely attached. Done. It takes 30 seconds. This simple act, performed every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, or even every 2 years, will save you thousands in gasket and seal replacement costs. It is the cheapest insurance policy your engine can have.
I want you to look at your car right now after watching this. Is there any oil residue on the sides of the engine? A little wetness around the top of the oil pan? A tiny puff of smoke when you open the oil cap? That is not normal wear and tear. That is your engine screaming for help. That is the crankcase pressure winning the battle against your oil seals. Think of it like this. Your engine is a high-pressure submarine, and the PCV valve is the single little airlock that lets the pressure stabilize. If that airlock fails, the pressure builds, and one by one, the expensive doors, your gaskets, your seals, your turbo drains, fail catastrophically. The thousands you saved by doing your own oil changes are gone the moment that rear main seal starts leaking. Replacing that seal requires dropping the transmission, which is a 4-figure repair bill, all because of $5. The PCV valve is not just a pollution control part. It is the pressure relief valve that keeps your engine's delicate internal environment in balance. Overlooking it is the single most costly mistake a responsible car owner can make. The difference between a car that burns itself out at 120,000 miles and one that easily hits 250,000 miles often comes down to this one overlooked piece of preventative maintenance. The cost of $5 versus a $4,000 engine rebuild or replacement transmission job, the math is not hard. Stop giving your money away to mechanics for easy repairs. Check your PCV valve today. Conclusion or summary. We've covered everything. We know crankcase pressure is the silent killer created by blow-by. We know the PCV valve is the $5 hero that controls this pressure, keeping a slight vacuum in your engine to make your seals and gaskets last for years. We also know that when the valve gets clogged with oil and soot, it gets stuck closed, leading to massive oil leaks and total engine seal failure. The most important takeaway is this. This is a maintenance part, just like an oil filter. It is designed to be replaced. Shake it, check the vacuum, or just replace it every 2 years or 50,000 miles. It is the cheapest and most effective way to ensure your engine doesn't eat its own gaskets and cost you a fortune. Call to action. 10 seconds max. Hit the subscribe button right now if you want to save more money on car repairs.